The billionaire CEO had everything money could buy, except peace. But on the night he married a waitress he had known for barely 3 weeks, she disappeared from their bedroom and left a single envelope on his pillow. Inside was a photograph of a little boy and one handwritten sentence that made his blood run cold. Before you decide what kind of wife I am, please find out what your family did to my mother. Arden Vale stood frozen in the golden silence of his enormous bedroom, staring at the photograph. Outside the tall windows, afternoon sunlight poured across the city, turning the glass towers into rivers of gold. Only hours earlier, hundreds of guests had watched him marry Mara Ellison, a young waitress from a small neighborhood cafe. Everyone had called the wedding madness. His business partners had called it a scandal. His mother had called Mara a gold digger. But Arden had married her anyway, believing that perhaps the woman who had once brought him coffee with a quiet smile was the only person in his world who treated him like a human being instead of a bank account. If you believe kindness can give people second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Sometimes one small act of kindness can change a person's entire life. Arden remembered the first day he had met Mara. He had entered the cafe wearing an expensive suit, surrounded by assistants, while his phone refused to stop ringing. His company was facing its worst financial crisis in 20 years, and every person around him wanted something. Mara had simply placed a cup of coffee in front of him and noticed that his hands were trembling. Instead of asking for a photograph or trying to impress him, she had quietly said that he looked exhausted and should eat something. When he told her he had no appetite, she had brought him a bowl of soup anyway and refused to charge him. That tiny kindness stayed in his mind. Weeks later, when Arden learned that Mara was about to lose the apartment where she lived with her younger brother, he offered to help. She refused. He offered her a job at his company. She refused that too. Then, during a charity event, Arden made an impulsive proposal: marry him for 1 year, and he would protect her family from financial disaster while she helped him survive a boardroom battle that required the appearance of a stable personal life. To his surprise, Mara agreed. The wedding had been beautiful, but there had been something strange about her throughout the ceremony. She smiled for everyone, yet her eyes looked as if she were carrying a secret too heavy for one person. Arden had assumed it was fear. Now he understood it was something much deeper. He opened the envelope again. The little boy in the photograph looked about 6 years old. Behind the photograph was another note: his name is Theo. He is not your son. But your father promised my mother he would protect him. He broke that promise. Arden's heart began pounding. His father had died 5 years earlier, leaving behind a complicated business empire and a reputation for being ruthless. Arden had spent years believing his father was simply a difficult businessman. But Mara's words forced him to question everything. He searched through old company records until he found a forgotten employee file belonging to a woman named Celeste Ellison, Mara's mother. She had worked for Arden's father 17 years earlier. The file contained almost nothing, except a termination notice and a handwritten complaint that had mysteriously disappeared from the official records. Then Arden discovered something even worse. Celeste had been one of the accountants who had warned his father that millions of dollars were being moved illegally through a hidden company. She had threatened to expose the truth. Instead, she had been fired, publicly accused of stealing, and forced to leave the city. Her reputation was destroyed. Her health collapsed under the stress. And she had raised Mara alone. Arden sat in silence, tears gathering in his eyes. His father's betrayal had not only ruined one woman's career. It had changed an entire family. But there was one question he could not understand. Why had Mara married him? He found her downstairs in the quiet garden, sitting beside a fountain. She looked frightened when she saw him, but she did not run. Arden asked her why she had never told him the truth. Mara lowered her eyes and explained that she had not married him for money. She had married him because her mother had spent years believing that Arden's father would one day apologize. Before Celeste died, she gave Mara a box containing evidence of the financial fraud and told her never to trust the Vale family. Mara had initially hated Arden because of his father's actions. But after meeting him in the cafe, she realized he was different. She saw the loneliness behind his wealth, the pressure behind his confidence, and the kindness he tried to hide. She had planned to expose the truth and walk away. Then she fell in love with him. Arden could barely speak. He told her that he could not change what his father had done, but he could choose what kind of man he would become. The next morning, Arden called an emergency meeting of the company board. In front of every executive, he presented the evidence. He announced that the stolen money would be returned, Celeste's name would be publicly cleared, and a foundation would be created in her honor to help families destroyed by corporate corruption. The board threatened to remove him. Arden simply stood up and said that if protecting his family's reputation required destroying innocent people, then he wanted no part of that reputation. Months passed. The scandal became national news, but something unexpected happened. Instead of losing everything, Arden's company began rebuilding on honesty and transparency. Employees who had been afraid to speak finally found their voices. Mara continued working, even though Arden begged her to leave the cafe. She told him she loved serving people because it reminded her that kindness did not belong only to the wealthy. One sunny afternoon, Arden walked into the cafe without his suit jacket. He stood in line like everyone else. Mara smiled when she saw him. He ordered the same soup she had once given him for free. And when she asked why, Arden smiled and said that it was the first meal anyone had ever given him without wanting something in return. Mara reached across the counter and held his hand. For the first time in his life, the billionaire CEO understood that his greatest inheritance had not been money, buildings, or power. It had been the chance to become better than the man who came before him. And the secret Mara carried on their wedding night had not destroyed their marriage. It had given them the courage to build a life based on truth. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes people deserve second chances, and subscribe to Kindness Corner for more emotional stories. And before the story ends, comment, "Kindness changes everything," if you believe that one honest heart can heal wounds that money never could. Because sometimes the person who enters your life with the least is the one who teaches you what truly matters.